Arte dell'Arme, the Bolognese podcast, where we discuss the intricacies of the Bolognese tradition with the practitioners, translators, authors, and teachers working to bring the art back to life. Today's guest is the man with the mythical gloves and the legendary vision, Mr. Dario Alberto Magnani.
Perfect.
All
That's
right.
me.
Yeah, welcome, man. What time is it right now over
Uh,
in
it's 1 a.m.
May?
1:20 a.m.
And whereabouts are you in Italy?
Yeah, yeah. I'm in Ravenna, in northern Italy.
Very nice. Very nice. That's where they found
Not far
the
from
anomaly.
Bologna, actually. It's 40
Yeah,
minutes from here.
yeah. That's where they discovered the anonymous.
Yeah, we have it in a bibliothèque here in Ravenna. Actually, we had it there. It's 5 minutes from my house, more or less, maybe
That's
7.
fantastic.
Yeah.
So one of the things I was actually talking to Michael Chittister last week, and one of the things that he was saying is we need to get scans of the Anonimo Bolognese. Um, maybe you can take a trip over to the library when you're
Yeah,
not.
that's actually a possibility, and it's something we are actually thinking about and working on with another friend from Ravenna. We want to set up something to make good scans, especially talking about Michael Chidester. I mean, he makes awesome scans for for
He
stuff,
does.
and so we don't want to be worse than even that. And especially talking about Michael, I want to thank him for the Fiore facsimile. Do you say it
Yes.
in English?
Yep. That's what.
It's beautiful, and anyone that knows anyone who has one, go checking it because it's a beautiful thing. And I know he's making also offers and other stuff. If he ends up making the manual you study of, buy one copy. My recommendation.
Oh yeah. I you
It's
know I
impressive.
I got a copy of Fiore. I actually just got my copy a couple weeks ago, and it's already one of my prized possessions. I love it. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's definitely well done.
It is. All right. So just as a brief introduction, let's go ahead and just kind of jump straight in and start talking about the Weapon Master a little bit. So what inspired you to develop the THOKK Weapon Master Gauntlets?
So the answer may be obvious, but there weren't gloves I was happy with in the market. So as obvious as this may be, basically the lack of options that I liked, mostly because I don't like mitten style gloves either for longsword. Obviously, it's impossible to use them with single-handed swords and swords with complex guards and everything, but I
Yeah.
don't even like mittens for longsword. So I ended up into the HEMA scene relatively late compared to the beginning of my career in historical fencing, since we in Italy had a head start in studying, but then joined the world movement quite late. And so I impacted into EMA in 2014 when I was already teaching. So I never had a contact with the wider community outside of Italy before. And we already had a few tournaments here in Italy. We already had hosted a few even, but we never had a bigger approach to the wider world community. We weren't aware, even aware, yeah, in Italy, we weren't aware of how big the movement was growing in the rest of the world. And when I actually realized that, I started trying stuff from other businesses and other makers and started joining events and stuff like that. And for the kind of community it was growing into, for the kind of bigger thing it was growing into, I felt that it was unacceptable to either risk breaking your fingers in every event and every hard sparring and every heavier session you were doing, or using basically bucklers on your hands.
Yeah.
So I ended up deciding that there, to me at least, it was necessary to have a different option also, mostly for a side sword at the beginning, because it was impossible to fence side sword safely and comfortably. And then, since I am mainly a longsword person, that has to be said. I'm mainly an early longsword person, also for longsword, and so I ended up saying, why not something that works for both? Some kind of master of all weapons, and that's
Yeah.
how the game with the weapon master and master of weapons came out. And everyone probably knows that I first tried with a three finger design with another company,
Yep.
and then the other company exploded.
Yeah.
And so,
Hey, that's putting it nicely.
more or less,
Yeah.
it didn't actually explode, but yeah, we all get it. For how good people they are, because I honestly think they are great people. Maybe they exaggerated a little bit on volumes compared to ability to make it. And so yeah, they exploded. And in the meantime, I moved on and started doing something different and following my own design inspiration and ideas. And so I started thinking of a fully five-fingered glove, and specifically of a glove, not a gauntlet.
Mhm.
And I looked around and said, yeah, okay, there's SCA stuff, there's steel gauntlets, there's plastic stuff coming out because we already knew the plastic stuff was coming. And well, why not trying something that works like a glove? And so I started that, and so it was possible, and tried to run for something that could be a start. So in my head, stupid me, it was like I make a small crowdfunding, we start making a few pairs and see if people like it, and we basically broke it. And so I said, no, stop everything. This needs to be scaled differently, absorbed differently. And so I don't know if you were following that at the beginning, but I had
Well,
to stop the crowdfunding at a certain point and decide whether to go on or to refund the money and redo everything later on. I decided to keep it on and upscale everything on the run. And we all know it took time. Uh,
yeah.
everyone listening to this knows it took time. Sorry about that, but still, basically, here we are. So it did work in the end.
Yeah. So, what is it that about the Weapon Master that separates it from other five finger gloves that are going to be on the market?
Well,
What's
as I was introducing it first, it's the approach, in my opinion. I mean, this is a glove in everything, in every way it's made. It's not a gauntlet. It's not an exoskeleton to be worn over something that you put on your hand. It's fundamentally something that you put on your hand. Full stop. So it's a glove. I know you're only recording audio, right?
hmm
So
Yes,
I can show this, but it's a glove. Okay, it's not a gauntlet. And this also translates to the way it works in terms of protection, because it's mostly soft stuff.
Hmm.
So instead of focusing on making rigid parts and articulated rigid parts and plates and joints and attachments and stuff, I focused on developing materials that could withstand the kinds of impacts we have in HEMA while being soft, so remaining flexible and movable. And that's the biggest, in my opinion, the biggest difference between this and any other, I think, five-fingered product. This has no joints. It's literally single plates flexing with your hands like a soft padding,
yeah.
designed to withstand higher forces.
So one of my biggest frustrations with heavier protection on five finger gloves tends to be the bulk between the index finger and the thumb coming into contact with my cross guard. How does the Weapon Master compare to other five finger gloves like Red Dragon or Koning or Pro Gauntlet or even the like specified fingers? Um, how does it compare in that regard?
So you mean basically the area between the thumb and the index, correct?
Yep.
So the biggest problem in that area is protecting the side of the fingers, so without exposing them, but at the same time, making it still capable of closing your hand. The main solution we found with WeaponMaster Gauntlets was that a thinner protection is on the side of the finger instead. No, sorry, that this is wrong in English probably. Uh, the protection on the side of the index finger is thinner than that on the back of it, and the way the thumb is made basically forms a V shape
Mhm.
between the thumb and the index, so that when you close your fingers one to the other, you have the full range of motion to fully close the hand. And when you open it, you don't get any bone and any bony area exposed, because the two plates slide one next to the other. Yeah, I'm Italian. I'm gesticulating. I know you see,
That's
but
okay.
nobody will see me in any way. But yeah, so basically, there's multiple layers of protection. So you have the inner layer, which is in the lining of the glove, the outer layer, which is on the outer sleeve of the glove, and between the two inner layers and the two outer layers, there's a sliding game that allows the maximum possible protection in every position, while having them slide one on over and next to the other to to be able to move. It's not as complicated as it sounds. I swear, it's just very difficult to explain.
Yeah, but
That's like Buddy says, if I could show you this, it would be easier. I have to tell you.
yeah, I mean, we are recording video. Maybe I can post it on YouTube. But I think, one of the beautiful things is that sometimes the simplest designs that are most practical and solve an easy problem, like this problem that we see with a lot of gloves, are the best solutions, right? Like, I mean, that area it's always been for most side sword users, which the most of the people who are going to be listening to this podcast are going to be using single-handed swords in some way, and that's always been our biggest frustration, right? Like I have had a few pairs of red dragons, and every time that I use them, I always cut out that section, that little bit of protection right there, and I just take the risk because otherwise I lose my ability to sort of actually get the sword into my hand in a way that's
Yeah.
reasonable.
Maybe I have found a decent way to explain it. Uh, if you think about those that are called Wisby gauntlets, so
Yep.
those articulated ones, they have a plate outside the finger on the knuckle and a plate inside the finger under a piece of leather, so that
Hmm.
the two plates are not in the same level, so they can slide one
Right. So they
over the
overlap.
other.
Yeah, that
That's
makes
the
sense.
basic concept of most of the articulation areas of the glove. So
Oh
an
yeah.
outer layer and two inner layers, which do not conflict one with the other by
Nice.
being on different levels.
Yeah, that's awesome. How much does a glove weigh?
So they are composed by parts. So if you go by the heaviest setup,
Mhm.
it's something more than 300 grams per glove.
Oh, that's really
If you
good.
go with the heaviest setup, on the lightest one, it's around 250.
Wow. Yeah. That's well, I mean that's significant too because um I mean, I think the production models that are coming out right now with the Pro Gauntlets are 500 grams. I know that the Conan gloves that I have, I've got a first generation pair and a second generation pair. They are yeah,
Yeah,
upwards of
a pair,
600
a pair
grams.
of these ones weighs as much as a coin
Wow.
in the heaviest setup.
Yeah, that's fantastic because that's the other problem
Actually,
too.
actually less than version one coin,
Yeah. Okay.
because version two were like 50 grams lighter,
Yeah.
and two of these weighed like one of the version two, more or less.
So, but yeah, so anytime
Also,
anytime you talk about like 500 grams, it's getting on it's bordering on too much, right? So if you can have that, I mean, that's already a substantial addition to any sort of setup when you're talking about fighting and sparring full speed, because
Also,
I think that's definitely. I'm sorry.
it's definitely a dog.
Yeah, that is definitely a dog. Yeah, yep. Um, so what I was going to say is that's definitely a concern that I've seen with a lot of other five finger variants, is that sometimes to incorporate protection they add weight, and so like you end up with these massive gloves. A lot of people sort of poke fun at them and call them like Hulk gloves, um, and it's a pain. It's definitely a challenge. So, and that's
But also,
exciting. It's exciting that the Weapon Master might solve that and give us an option where you know we can reduce that weight, reduce the size, and have that mobility.
also one thing to consider is that, this is another pro, in my opinion. The glove itself would have weighted 250, maybe 240 on um on the heavy setup. Theoretically, it ended up weighting a bit more because we had to make the cuff larger
Mhm.
to meet some regulations. Um, so I was saying I had to make the cuffs slightly bigger, somewhat bigger, to follow some regulations, since we are certifying the gloves for regulations for fencing. And this unfortunately meant that there's a bit more weight because we had to make the cuffs bigger, but still that weight is on the cuff. So you don't have the weight on the extremity of the arm, but it's sort of around your wrist and behind your wrist. So it doesn't feel like 300, in my opinion. I mean, it feels like it's a bit less in any case.
Nice.
Not
Yeah.
like it was 250, but still better than 300.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, any sort of weight dispersion too helps out a lot. I mean, you know, your forearms, if you start getting into stronger muscle groups, the problem is when most of the weight ends up being on like the end of your hand, and it's all in your fingers and on the top of your hand, and then it slows your wrist down, which so much of the Bolognese system in particular is a lot of wrist movements, a lot of tight, very articulated movements that need to be quite quick and dexterous. So yeah, that's awesome. So, with other five finger gloves, there's been sort of a substantial break-in period. Can we expect something similar with the Weapon Masters?
So weapon masters obviously have a breaking period like any kind of clothing of any type, but no, their breaking period isn't substantial. To my experience, within minutes, you get to 90-95% of
Wow.
of the final breaking in. Within a few days of use, they are completely broken in
How durable do
because
you?
they don't have hard parts or things that need to give in. They're
Yeah.
just slightly stiff, but it's mostly the fabric because it's new and just sewn and ironed. How do you say that? Yeah, ironed when you
Mhm.
make it plain, flat.
Yeah.
So
So
it's a
we
bit stiff, but it's no, they don't feel stiff, but they are a bit stiffer than when fully broken in. But that's just the fabric.
gotcha. So because they are fabric, how durable can we expect the gloves to be?
So considering that's fabric for fencing, so that's either full polyester or polyester and Dyneema, it's rather durable. Any part that is exposed to blows and it's not fencing fabric is either aramedic fabrics or abrasion resistant synthetic suit. So they are rather durable, and especially the areas that have rigid parts or semi-rigid parts behind them, like the rigid knuckle protector. It's covered in high-quality aramedic fibers so that it doesn't get eaten by swords. I think they're going to be pretty durable.
Nice.
The,
Um,
the only thing that gets eaten a bit faster than the rest is probably the silicone pattern on the palm, but that's kind of intended because it gets eaten the most in the areas you slide the most, so that over time the glove is going to become ever and ever more comfortable for you to slide through grips. So
Gotcha.
that's the real breaking in period of the glove, probably getting rid of the silicone pattern where you need to slide.
So it'll be too grippy at first, and then gradually it will become
Yeah,
a little bit
that,
more.
that, that that's quite intentional because it has to remain grippy and sticky
Yeah,
in the area where you want it to be, and where you usually slide, it gets eaten up, so you only remain with the fabric, and there you can slide.
nice. Yeah, because that was one of the other things, with some gloves that I know people have had frustration with is that you kind of sacrifice your tactile feedback in your fingertips and stuff like that. So, how well can you feel the sword through the Weapon Masters?
I can click on my phone. I
Okay.
mean, there's a video on YouTube of me
Yeah.
unlocking my phone with them. So no, the I think the tactility is as good as you can have through a glove, because between your fingertip and the sword, there's a layer of 1 millimeter, no, actually zero 0.9 millimeters of synthetic suede, which is the same we use on the back. It's the black one on the palm, and behind that there's just a layer of thin moisture wicking fabric, which is the lining. So between you and the sword, there's just less than 1 millimeter of synthetic leather and moisture wicking fabric. That's the lining, nothing else.
Yeah. Nice. So when you're, let's talk a little bit about the dexterity. When you've gone through and you've done any sort of like training with a side sword, are there any Bolognese guards or actions where you feel like you're fighting the glove when using a side sword? Do you feel any resistance?
So probably the only point of there's 2 points of resistance when fencing Bolognese, but that only happens with the heavy lining in. So when they are in heavy setup, you are probably going to struggle a bit with Beccaposa,
Hmm.
because the position of the thumb being um, that obviously also depends on how you interpret it, but a majority of people have it with the thumb out, and that means you are basically holding the sword with just fingers and the thumb, and yeah, so in that position, the thumb joint is going to slightly obstruct you compared to having nothing on.
Gotcha.
And the other thing is, um, in when you do any kind of guard that is shortened, so whenever you're doing any higher guard or any guard with your wrist out, okay, so when you're keeping your wrist out in any way, if you have the heavy lining on, there's a back plate here, a back plate on the back of the hand that tends to slightly conflict with the cuff. So it doesn't block your movement, but you'll hear something like you have something like a click
Hmm.
at a certain point, because you're not expected to go all out with your wrist when using long swords. And so with the heavy lining on, that one, for some people at least, those with shorter hand or the fingers nearer to the wrist than most people, they are going to feel a click there or something.
Gotcha. So like almost like Gordy to Testa, I imagine would probably be one where you'd end up
Yeah,
fighting
yeah,
because you're going to kind of get your
yeah.
hand across.
You can have that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, comparing it to everything
For
else,
the long stretta and those kinds of guards where you have the gas opened. Okay.
yeah, yeah. Well, that sounds, I mean, so far, I mean, it sounds amazing. I mean, um, I know I don't need to hype it enough. And I feel like you're answering all of my questions and giving me even more momentum feeling forward that I'm just like getting even more excited about it. Um,
Sorry about that.
no, no,
Making you
it's okay. It's okay.
earlier.
I mean, obviously, COVID put the world on hold. And it seems like production, but it does seem like production and distribution are starting to ramp back up again. Um, when can we expect to start seeing weapon masters show up in schools across the globe?
So they are on the shipping right now, and They are doubling in production volumes every month, more or less, because we are on very first rollout. So we had to start off from a size and color. We started with M reds, and then we started introducing other sizes and other colors on parallel production lines, basically. So we are going to go up to 200 or maybe 300 pieces a month.
Wow.
And the current objective is to open the shop in August.
Hmm.
So by August, all of the pre-order ones should already be out, and actually the first pairs should be seen around events in the middle of next month, because in Italy there's already going to be a few pairs around, and at least one pair is going to be at an event.
Nice.
So they're going to be out rather soon and out in the wild.
Yeah, that's great. So obviously you're gonna sort of ship to your Indiegogo backers
Yeah,
first. The
yeah, we are
people who
shipping that.
Yeah, the people who did order when the queue was opened, I think back in, was it August that you opened up the queue for ordering gloves for
It
non-backers?
was August last year. Yeah.
Yeah. About what time do you think it'll be before people who ordered in that queue can start to expect their gloves?
Before August this year, since August this year, we are going to open the shop. So by
Okay.
then, we are going to be finished with all pre-orders, not just
Nice.
Indiegogo backers. If we aren't, for any kind of reason, I'm not opening the shop to new orders, obviously. I
Yeah.
need to make this clear. We are not opening new orders until I'm done shipping out stuff for everyone that has already ordered that. That of last August was an unfortunate circumstance, because gloves should have been available in a couple months, and then second COVID wave and third COVID wave came,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I honestly didn't expect it to be that bad on second and third wave, given how the first one had gone. So yeah, I was already late, and that was a further delay. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was messy.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody's gonna fault you for what ended up happening with the pandemic. I
No, but
mean,
I understand that probably I shouldn't have opened the queue on last August, but yeah, I couldn't expect it to go this way.
yeah. Oh, it's not that big of a deal. I'm just excited. I can't wait. I can't wait to get my hands in them, and I can't wait to start fighting with them because, I'm. It's I think I've tried everything, and I've tried to DIY my own gloves and just every. It's really hard to find a good solution. There's always something, which I mean is always going to be the case. I mean, no glove is ever going to be
Yeah,
perfect, but um, it's exciting that there's going to be a glove that we can hopefully rely upon, especially for the Bolognese community, where we've kind of always been on the tail end of things. Like
yeah,
they're
because there's the need for protection, but you can't have as much protection even as an arming sword, because there's the guard,
yeah.
and yet some people fancy lighter gloves because there's the guard. Then they get struck on the fingers and then they cry. So that depends on how things go. It's a game of luck
Yeah. Yeah, it
sometimes.
is. It is. Yeah, and I mean, that's what we've pretty much relied on in our school. We've tried a lot of different gloves, and obviously we haven't had to worry about fighting in tournaments. We've just been fighting in leather gloves and just really learning to protect our hands.
Yeah, definitely. I still think that protecting your hands is the easiest way to reduce statistical risk. But when you get struck, you need gloves.
Yes, you do. Yep. Yep. Well, I mean, one of the things, going back to the Anonimo Bolognese, it's when you start reading through the Anonimo and you really start trying to work through those plays, one of the things that he attacks the hands a lot. Um,
Yeah,
and so it's you need that attack to the hands in order to really kind of set up, because that's what he uses to enter measure. It's usually some sort of an attack, either a beat to the blade or an attack to the hand to get them to move their guard, and that's how you're entering measure. And if you can't do that, then the rest of the play doesn't really matter or really make sense, because you're just
yeah.
walking into somebody fixed in guard.
But
So
that's not just about entering measure, because even when you're leaving measure, just think of Manciolino.
yeah, for
That
sure.
that, that rising montante every time
Oh
is
yeah.
going out. where does it aim, in your opinion? I mean, that's
Yeah,
the hand.
go into the
Okay,
hand. Yeah.
so if I swipe towards the top of my head with a montante on your fingers and I end up on your pinky, you better have gloves.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I was just reading through and kind of working through a lot of the plays from the Anonymous with his left versus right-handed plays. And that's how he finishes every play. Like a lot of different authors for different reasons will exit in certain ways. His exit for fighting a left-handed fencer with a single-handed sword is to throw that essentially, yeah, like a rising falso that goes over your shoulder into sopra brachio, and it's nasty, man. You can't do that with with somebody not wearing like a lot of hand protection. So
Also, the other
so
guy is left-handed,
yes, yeah, exactly.
so you're going to him on the other side of the hand.
Yeah.
So that's going to hit something.
Yeah,
It's
no.
not going to land on the pommel.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. Yep. So, I mean, hopefully maybe it'll have a long-term impact of just kind of making our fencing better. I'm talking to some people who were early KDF practitioners when they were fighting in lacrosse gloves and before they really had good glove options. Even they talked about how there were certain techniques that they wouldn't do because they didn't feel comfortable. They knew that they could really hurt somebody. And now that we have better glove options that they can use, they talk about how they feel like it's opened up a lot of the plays. It's made things make sense, and they've seen better results from sparring and interpretation development because of it. And so maybe you're going to have this profound, unforeseen
I hope
impact
so.
on the sidesword community, where we're just going to see this explosion of great techniques and great fencing.
I hope so. In all honesty, I think that yeah, that's possibly going to have a solid impact on one-handed swords in general, on one-handed sword practice in general. But my biggest hope, at least, even though this is going to be unpopular, probably, my biggest hope is for longsword practitioners. Uh, since if they finally have a five-fingered solution that actually works for longswords, I hope those people that are not using tactility in longsword
Hmm.
will have that option and realize how much you need your fingers in longsword. Because I keep reading people writing stuff like, I can do everything with mittens, and I'm like, how?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
I mean, half of the time I have my index finger open when I'm fighting longsword.
Yeah.
How can you do that with mittens?
You can. Yeah.
So I think that some of this is also going to impact longsword practitioners. Obviously, one-handed practitioners are going to be happier about it, probably because they finally have something. But I think that it's going to also have an impact on longsword practice. At least I hope.
Yeah, yeah. So describe the different options. You were kind of talking about how there's a heavy option and there's a lighter option. What's the difference between the two?
So the difference is, so calling them options probably isn't the right term. They are setups. I mean, the glove comes with two different linings. So every WeaponMaster Pro comes with two different linings. Those are not really options. They both come with the gloves.
Gotcha.
And you can choose if you want to fill the outer sleeve with the heavy lining or with a light one. So the heavy lining is the one we spent the time and research on to make it the most protective possible. So it weighs a bit more than the light one, and it's the one packed with our scutum, which is the foam fabric composite we created for WeaponMaster Gauntlets, which can withstand the highest impacts we can have. So that's the highest protection level you can have. It's a bit heavier and a bit less nimble than having the lighter lining, which is basically a soft foam.
Hmm.
So when you wear the gloves with the heavy lining, they are some 50 grams heavier, a bit a bit less texturous compared to the light lining, but they can withstand longsword and darning sword and military saber and stuff like that.
Hmm.
If you need to do small sword, EP, rapier, and stuff like that, you remove the bulkier heavy protection, which also includes rigid fingertips, and you fit the lighter lining, basically making it a hybrid between a motorcycle glove and a fencing glove.
Hmm.
So some padding on the back, rigid knuckles, and no rigid fingertips. Because
Interesting.
I want to see you putting two fingers inside the rapier with the rigid fingertips.
Yeah, yeah. So that's going to be in every glove. So every glove is just going to be like totally modifiable to whatever weapon that you're using. Just one pair of
Yeah,
gloves to rule them all.
yeah. Actually, you can remove part of the heavy linings protection, so you can even end up with a hybrid between the two. So rigid fingertips, but softer protection on the back, still having the rigid parts. That's up to the single person what they need for every kind of fight. I'm not expecting people to go removing parts for every fight.
Yeah,
That wouldn't be neither sensible nor practical.
right.
But imagine you're going to have a rapier tournament, 4 hours of rapier. I bet you're going to remove those 50 grams and rigid fingertips.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You're going to have a longsword tournament. You're probably going to put it back.
Yeah.
Whenever you're just sparring around with people, you're probably not going to go modifying the single finger, taking away or putting back in foam or anything. Maybe you're just going to take out one of the linings and put inside the lighter one if you're going rapier, take it away and put inside the heavier one if you're going back to longsword, stuff like that. Because it takes like this amount of time.
That's
So
awesome.
it's not really going to be a bigger problem. This is one of the linings. This is the other one. So you just take it out and put it back in.
Wow. That's fantastic. Now, the inner
Just
lining,
it's in,
that-
and it's already fastened.
yeah, that's awesome. Wow. So with those linings, are those linings washable?
Yep.
Oh, oh man. Oh, that's awesome. Because everybody who's ever used smelly gloves or had their gloves
I hate
deteriorate.
it. I
Yeah,
hate it.
yeah.
Also, you're practicing Bolognese, but I recommend you to try. No, I don't recommend you to try smelling a pair of longsword gloves, especially those made with leather outside. After a few years.
Oh yeah. Well, I've got a couple pairs of coning
Yeah.
gloves that I use for
So,
long sword and for side sword. So
yeah,
yeah, they
those
they
get pretty nasty.
yeah, they have a unique smell. Yeah.
And also, one thing to note is that when you want to wash the linings, you have to take away the heavier foam and the fingertips.
Gotcha.
That's the only thing that's necessary. You need to take away the heavier foam and the fingertips. They are inside pockets, so you remove it and then you put it back in when it's dried.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the beautiful things I think that about these gloves is you really engineered for every possibility. That's really impressive.
Well, considering the production delays, at least I had the time to think
Yeah.
about this kind of stuff.
Yep.
I didn't stand idle waiting.
So if you
I
do,
profited from the delays.
yeah, yeah. So in the future, as the store opens up, are like if let's say something happens to your inner glove, will you be able to order replacement inner gloves? Or if something happens to your outer glove, like will you be able to order like the individual parts to replace them on your
Definitely,
glove?
definitely.
Nice.
Some of them are actually going to also be sold as separate parts, like the fingertips. are the same ones I introduced as the fingertippers some time ago.
Yep.
And so they are also going to come as fingertip protectors individually.
Nice.
I mean, individually in sets of 10, because we all have more or less 10 fingers. So
Yeah. So, what other products are you working on right now?
right now we are also working on jackets, which are going to come out together with the gloves
Nice.
and the matching pants. That's two models of jackets and one of pants, breeches, not pants, because I think in American pants are the ones you wear under the breeches. No?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. I'm still not perfect in English. So
No, you're good.
breeches, two kinds of jackets and one of breeches. And we are also reworking some of the previous stuff we had, like the foam protectors and the others we already have in stock and are getting made more of the version 2 of our foam protectors for elbows. And since we are there, they are also going inside the jacket. So
Nice.
it comes with with elbow protectors already in, removable if one doesn't want them. And we already have in stock gorgets, and they are going to release together with the shop too. We are working on a mask slash helmet,
Very nice.
but that's probably a next year goal,
Yeah.
because I don't think I'm going to pull it off this year. There's a few things to work on that, especially since I want to get everything certified into norm. I need to. Sometimes I also need to work with the people that make the norms to get something changed, because there's no norms for historical fencing or HEMA. So
Yeah.
it's not as easy as it sounds. So yeah, I think the helmets are getting pushed somewhat back, but yeah, they are coming too.
Nice. Yeah. That's exciting. I mean, I think, that's I mean, there are quite a few fencing masks out there, but I think that everybody that I've talked to in the HEMA community still feels like we can do better with masks to make them
Yeah,
safer. So,
probably that's the next big point in HEMA. I mean,
yeah.
gloves have been the starting point, because gloves are the major problem at the moment.
Yeah.
But I think that masks and head protection in general are going to be the 2020s point of HEMA, while the 2010s was about gloves. I've already seen other companies starting to come out with head solutions. And I think the first 5 years of this decade are going to be those of HEMA masks and head protections, probably.
Yeah. I agree with that.
In the meantime, I'm trying to get a head start for what I think is going to be next. So third, which is under jacket protectors.
Hmm.
And so another thing that we are working on, but it's going to release together with masks probably, are wearable protectors to go under jackets. Because I feel like a lot of people, after the surge of heavy jackets in 2017 and 18, are reverting back to lighter jackets and other protectors under them.
Yep.
So we are preparing some stuff for that too, so that when we launch a light jacket, we are already ready to give people what's going to go under it.
Perfect. Yeah.
That's
No.
2022, 23.
Yep.
Yeah.
As a predominantly a side sword fencer, I prefer a lighter jacket. So I fence in the spec officer's jacket. And yeah, when I fight longsword, I always have to put on some sort of a plastron, and they're always really uncomfortable. So I'm looking forward to whatever you come up with.
Yeah, but I think that you might probably also like the jackets we are going to I didn't get the word in English, to launch this year, because they come from the challenge jackets. We bought the design over, and we are making a renewed version of it, which is far lighter in padding and then has localized removable paddings,
Nice.
which is probably going to be the trend from here on. And that's why I think that by 2025, probably the trend will have settled towards the light jacket and other stuff under it.
Yeah. So more modifications. I like it. I like it. So, I mean, that's exciting. You know, I wish you the best luck because it's going to be a game changer. It's going to be awesome to have, somebody that's out there thinking about all the problems that we have and trying to answer them. So I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you.
And that concludes this very special edition, video edition of Le Arte dell'Armi, the Bolognese podcast. Thanks for watching, and stay saucy, my friends.